The baby whimpered in her crib, fists curling in the air. Laura sat beside her, gently rocking the tiny body in her arms. Her eyes flicked to the closed door, listening. The only sound outside was silence. She leaned forward and kissed the baby's forehead, then whispered something soft into her ear, just loud enough to carry through the nursery walls. A few feet away, Vivian stood in the hallway, perfectly still. Her arms folded tightly across her chest. She stared through the glass panel beside the nursery door. Her face unreadable. She didn't move closer. She didn't blink. She just watched. When the baby cried louder, she turned and walked away without a word. At feeding time, Laura laid out the baby's bottles neatly on the counter. She felt eyes on her. She turned her head. There Vivian again, leaning lightly against the doorframe of the kitchen, arms still folded, face hard like stone. She wasn't there to speak. She was just watching, always watching. Days passed. Vivian never reached out. Not once did her hand stretch toward the baby. She remained distant, cold. But the crib was always full. Diapers stocked, clothes neatly folded, warm blankets, fresh milk. Vivian provided everything. Yet her shoes never once stepped near the crib. Whispers followed them through the halls. Nurses chatted in corners, voices low. A doctor shook his head after checking the baby's vitals. 2 cleaners paused by the staircase, eyes wide, their mops forgotten. "She's never held her," one whispered. The other nodded slowly, her mouth tight. "Not once." Laura brushed past them without a word. She knew better than to join the talk. Her fingers clutched the edge of her apron as she hurried up the stairs with a bottle in hand. Inside her pocket, her phone buzzed. It was late. Night cloaked the nursery in silence. The baby had fallen asleep against Laura's chest. She swayed slowly on her feet, humming. Her phone lit up again. A strange number. She answered. A voice, calm, low, unfamiliar, came through. "If you can find out why Vivian won't touch her baby, you'll receive 5 million. No questions." The line went dead. Laura froze. She stared at the phone screen. Her eyes blinked slowly, her mouth slightly open. The baby stirred. She looked down at the child, then back at the phone. 5 million. Her heart began to race. She sat down. Her thoughts tumbled. Her chest rose and fell faster. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Vivian passed by. Her heels clicked sharply against the tiles. She didn't glance at Laura. Her hand rested on the doorknob of the study. She pushed it open, stepped in, and closed the door behind her. A few moments later, the quiet sound of soft sobbing drifted through the wall. Laura didn't move. Her gaze stayed on the study door. Something was there. Something heavy. The next day, Laura moved differently. Her eyes followed Vivian closely. She lingered longer in rooms. She asked small questions with a gentle smile, pretending they were harmless. Vivian only stared at her or gave short nods. She never offered answers. Frustrated, Laura reached for her last idea. All night she worked, her brush swiping back and forth, colors coming to life on the canvas. The picture grew. Vivian in soft strokes, her arms gently wrapped around the baby. By dawn, she hung the painting at the end of the hallway, right in Vivian's path. Hours later, Vivian stepped out. Her eyes landed on the painting. She stopped. Her body tensed. She took 3 quick steps forward, grabbed the canvas, and slammed it to the ground. The glass cracked. The frame splintered. Her voice rose. "Who put this rubbish here?" Laura stepped out from the nursery. The baby slept in her arms. Her voice came quiet, shaky. "I just thought, maybe you'd like it." Vivian pointed at her, eyes cold. "Never do this again." Laura's head dropped. "Yes, ma'am." Her voice trembled. But her lips curved slightly when Vivian turned away. That reaction, it had meaning. From then on, Laura changed her approach. She sat with the baby in the open lounge. She hummed lullabies while folding baby clothes near the living room. She rocked the baby in her arms as she moved around the house. Her voice grew louder each time she spoke to the child. "Your mama loves you," she said one day while cradling the child. She made sure Vivian, seated nearby with a book in her lap, could hear. Even if she's not ready to say it. Vivian's eyes didn't lift. But her fingers clenched the edge of the book just a little tighter. The nursery was quiet except for the soft hum of the fan. Laura bent over the baby's cot, folding tiny clothes. She smiled as she looked at the baby's cheeks, then whispered gently, "You look just like your mother, Vivian." A rustle came from behind. On the sofa, Vivian sat upright, her eyes locked on them. Her jaw tightened. She didn't speak. She rose, turned sharply, and walked out. Her door shut with a loud click. Behind it, her muffled sobs went on for hours. Laura straightened up slowly, her fingers pausing over a baby sock. She turned her head toward the hallway and listened. Faint cry. She exhaled. A flicker of triumph crossed her face. In all the months she had worked here, she had never seen Vivian react like that. She was getting closer. Later that night, the house lay still under dim lights. Laura paced briefly, then stopped in the middle of the hallway. Her fingers twitched. She crouched, let out a scream, then fell to the floor, eyes shut. The baby's cries pierced the silence. Vivian's door burst open. Her footsteps pounded toward the sound. She halted at the scene. Laura crumpled on the floor, the baby wailing beside her. Vivian's eyes darted from Laura to the baby. Her lips pressed together. Then she stepped over the crying baby, her heels clicking as she headed for the living room. A phone came to her ear. Her voice, calm but urgent, filled the air. Dr. Joel arrived moments later, breathless, clutching his medical bag. He knelt beside Laura and checked her pulse. "It's just a fainting spell," he said gently. "She needs rest." Laura stirred, blinked twice, then sat up slowly. Her hand went to her forehead as she pretended to be weak. Vivian stood near the door, arms crossed, unmoving, cold. The doctor turned to her, the baby squirming in his arms. "She's fine. Just scared." Vivian didn't reach out. Instead, she gave a small smile and said, "Just make sure Laura gets everything she needs." The baby reached out, but Vivian didn't glance back. She walked away. Laura's heart thudded. She pushed herself up and rushed to take the baby from the doctor. Her hands trembled. She hugged the baby close, blinking fast, confused. She rocked the baby and returned to the nursery, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her mind spun. She couldn't understand how a mother could ignore her child so completely. Days crept by. Laura watched, waited. She folded laundry, fed the baby, and listened. But no answers came. One evening, a sudden knock pulled her from her thoughts. She wiped her hands and opened the door. An elderly man stood on the porch. His eyes searched hers. "I need to see Vivian," he said. Laura tilted her head. "Who are you?" "I'm her husband." Her breath caught. She stepped aside and motioned him in. Her fingers flew across her phone, calling Vivian. Minutes passed. Vivian returned, her heels clacking on the tiles. She froze when she saw the man. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" He stepped forward slowly. "We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Get out. We can't keep living like this." Vivian's hands flew to the door. She shoved it open, pushed him out, and slammed it shut behind him. Laura stared after her, stunned. The air in the house grew heavy. She slipped through the back door and found the man still standing there, leaning on the wall. "Please," he said, "talk to her. She won't listen to me." She nodded slowly. "Tell me the truth, and I will." He hesitated, then pulled out a slip of paper. "Call me. I'll tell you everything." That night, when silence took over the house, Laura sat by the nursery window. She dialed the number with shaking fingers. He answered after several rings. "This is Laura," she whispered. His voice cracked. Vivian wasn't always like this. She was full of light once. Laura leaned forward. "I was married to her aunt. We had no children. Vivian moved in after her mother died. Years passed. She became beautiful. Failed. I got her pregnant. Laura's mouth dropped open. My wife lost her mind. She cursed Vivian. Said death would come to whatever she carried. That same day, she walked to the river and never came back. He paused. Laura's knuckles turned white around the phone. Vivian's first child died in her arms. So did the second. And the third. Doctors said nothing was wrong. But people whispered. She was cursed. She ran away. Are you the father of her baby now? Laura asked quietly. I'm not. I didn't even know she had one. She nodded, though he couldn't see her. Thank you. She hung up. The room was quiet again, except for the baby's soft breathing. Laura sat still. For the first time she understood. Vivian wasn't cruel, she was terrified. Not of her child, but of her own arms. And Laura's plan might have ended in a funeral. Laura held the phone in her hand, her fingers hovering over the screen. She stared at the number she was about to dial. Vivian's promised 5 million. But something deep inside her made her pause. The question of the child's father lingered in her mind, pulling her back from making the call. She put the phone down and decided to wait to figure out the truth first. The morning air was cool as Laura stood in the kitchen, feeding the baby mashed fruit. The soft sound of the spoon meeting the bowl broke the quiet. Then the phone rang. It was Cynthia, her younger sister. Laura, you need to come to the house right now. It's urgent, Cynthia said, her voice frantic. A knot twisted in Laura's stomach. What happened? Is Mama okay? I can't explain on the phone. Just come, please. The line went dead before Laura could say another word. Her pulse quickened. She didn't have time to tell Vivian. She wrapped the baby in a shawl, grabbed her bag, and left in a hurry, the urgency of her sister's call pressing against her chest. When she reached her mother's house, her breath was shallow, the baby resting gently in her arms. But as she entered the gate, her gaze landed on someone she hadn't expected. Vivian. The sight of her stopped Laura in her tracks. Vivian stood frozen too, eyes falling to the baby in Laura's arms. What are you doing here? Vivian's voice was sharp, confusion clouding her face. I got a call from my sister, Laura stammered, her gaze flicking to the ground. She said to come urgently. I didn't know you were here. Before Vivian could respond, Cynthia appeared from the house. Her eyes widened when she saw them standing there together. You work for her. Cynthia pointed at Vivian, disbelief in her voice. Laura nodded, feeling a weight settle in her chest. Yes, Vivian is my madam. Cynthia pulled Laura aside, her voice lowering to a whisper. You have to know. Our brother Robert. He's the father of Vivian's baby. Laura's mind spun, the world tilting as Cynthia recounted the events of that night. Vivian, drunk and alone, had cried in her car at the club. Robert, also drunk, found her and kept her company. One thing led to another, and they spent the night together in a hotel. By morning, Vivian woke up alone, with nothing but a scar on Robert's wrist to remember him by. Days later she saw him again, and the truth came crashing down. Robert was the father of her child. Laura's arms tightened around the baby as she slowly turned to look at Vivian. The woman who had been her boss, her employer, was now revealed to be the mother of her own niece. Her heart pounded as she tried to process the revelation. Vivian stood a few feet away, her face unreadable. The silence stretched between them like a tightrope, each of them holding their breath. Laura took a step forward, unable to look away from the child in Vivian's arms. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling. Vivian gave a sad smile, her eyes meeting Laura's. Whatever happened that night was consensual. Your brother didn't force me. But the way he disappeared. That was wrong. As Robert stepped into view, his gaze landed on his daughter for the first time. His hands shook as he reached for her, but just as he lifted her from Laura's arms, the baby slipped. Time seemed to slow as the baby began to fall. Vivian moved instinctively, lunging forward, and caught the child by the leg, pulling her safely into her arms. Vivian cradled the baby, her body trembling with fear. Tears welled in her eyes as she held the child close, the reality of the moment sinking in. She had feared this moment for so long, terrified that her baby would die, just like the others had. But this time the baby was safe. The child blinked up at her with wide, innocent eyes, perfectly fine. Vivian's legs gave way, and she collapsed to her knees, still holding the baby tightly. Tears streamed down her face, and she whispered in disbelief, "She's alive. She's really alive." Laura and Cynthia stood motionless, their hearts racing as they watched the raw emotion unfold. Even Robert stood still, unable to move, the shock of the moment too much to process. Vivian's voice cracked as she whispered again, "They said I was cursed, that all my babies would die." Laura stepped closer, her voice soft and reassuring. "You were never cursed." Vivian looked at her, confused. "How do you know that?" Laura took a deep breath. "I found something out today. Something I need to tell you." Vivian's eyes narrowed as she hugged her child protectively, the shift in her demeanor evident. "What do you mean?" Laura hesitated before continuing, her voice steady. "Your aunt didn't drown herself. She was murdered. Your husband, he killed her. And he's been using you and your children for money rituals." Vivian's face went pale as Laura's words sank in. "It wasn't a curse," Laura said gently. "It was him. He made you believe in lies, made everyone believe in a curse." Vivian looked down at her daughter, tears blurring her vision. The weight of everything she had been through, the guilt and grief she had carried for years, began to crumble away. "He lied to me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He stole my peace." Laura wrapped her arms around her, pulling her into a hug. "Not this one, Vivian. Not anymore." Later that night, Vivian couldn't sleep. She made a few calls, and by morning, her aunt's husband was arrested. The truth about his crimes began to unravel as witnesses, who had once vanished, came forward to testify against him. He was finally sentenced for his actions. Weeks later, Laura picked up a call from the woman who had once promised her $5 million for the truth. Laura's voice was cold as she spoke. "For a long time I thought money was everything. But some things are priceless. Don't ever call me again," she said, hanging up with finality. What Laura didn't know was that the woman had been trying to use Vivian's past to gain an advantage in a business deal. Laura had unknowingly protected Vivian from a scandal that would have ruined her. Vivian, now free from the lies and pain of her past, learned a hard lesson too. She regretted everything she had done to her aunt, wishing she could go back and undo the mistakes she had made. In the end, the story showed that not all silences are signs of guilt. Sometimes the people we blame are simply fighting battles we can't see. And as Vivian learned, not all mothers who keep their distance are cold. Some are just broken by the weight of lies too heavy to carry. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate every single one of you. I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I loved creating it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment to let me know your thoughts, and share it with your friends so they can join the fun too. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. More exciting content is coming your way. Stay tuned, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.